can work with this.
We go to win them like that. Oh, God, boy, I can know be a belly jack.
Check one, two. Check one, two. I'm killing them shot. Because I swear God, the fight, we're killing them back. We go to win them like that. Oh God, boy, I can know be a belly jack. That's all, yeah.
money, na 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 na. Money alone, we making money rush rush like Indomie. Suppose that you are what my lordy. Baby, show my Giuseppe's a naughty. See, I'm not killing them shot. Because I swear God, if I go killing them back. Rap, 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 we go to win them like that. Oh, God, boy, I know be a belly jack.
Seri Magabure, classic boy. Oh, lo, 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 lo.
DJ Young
Seri
P.
Magabure, classic boy. Oh, lo, 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 lo. You are feeling fly, 'cause I know get back. You dey follow sugar daddies, no dey do chatty chatty. Yeah. I dey wonder why. Baby, do me like this, oh. You can do me like that, oh. Yeah. Below ya be humble, no money, no trouble. Oh baby, no fumble. I love you, she know you. Now
Are we good? So today we're going to be having a very interesting conversation around tech talent and oil. I'm sure it goes without saying that somehow there's really steady decline in oil revenues, the whole world clamoring for renewable energy. And so, thinking is one that has been going on over and over again. Nigeria needs to diversify, Nigeria needs to diversify, Nigeria. But diversify into, right? And we think that technology is something incredible, something that can be explored. We have declining oil, but growing population. Maybe there's a fine print there. We'll be hearing more unexpected connection and Lithuanian company of conversation would like you to. Thank you so much for coming. The CEO of our key partners for Mark. Please.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. All right, let me stand here so everyone can see me. Everyone can see me now, right? And those online can see me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ololade. I am the CEO of the Uber company. I'm really excited about this event, particularly because of the opportunities it presents for young talent in Nigeria. You know, growing up, one of the challenges that I had was having people to emulate. We would have these great guys. At the point, it was Bill Gates that a lot of us were trying to emulate, like, wow, this guy built a massive solution, created a massive company. And then Mark Zuckerberg came at my age at the time.
Hello.
And he blew everything off the roofs. And we're like, okay,
sure?
So this is possible. And since then, we've seen a lot of other things happen within the tech ecosystem outside of Nigeria. But within the past few years, we've now seen much more happen even within our tech ecosystem. As of today, we have 3 unicorns in Nigeria. And most of all these companies are built by young people like myself. However, there have been challenges that we've faced as young people in tech. We haven't had access to some infrastructure, some of the support that we thought we would have, we didn't have, and a number of other things like that. But we also believe that there's a lot of opportunity for tech talent in Nigeria. And a few years ago, Ventures platform, in collaboration with Africo, did a program called Digital Explorers to look at the talents, the young talent, tech talents that we have, and look for opportunities for them in a country called Lithuania. For some of you, that's the first time you hear that. All right. So this young talent went to Lithuania to work with tech companies in Lithuania through the Digital Explorers program. One of the companies they worked with is a company called Telesofters. We call them the Microsoft of Europe, right? And after that engagement, Telesofters realized, the CEO is here, so he's not going to deny what I'm saying. You won't deny me, right? They realized that Nigerian talent are actually one of the smartest in the world. Am I correct? All right. And because of that, they are now coming to Nigeria to set up shop. And we've seen a lot of that happen in the past few years. Microsoft has set up shop in Lagos. Facebook has done the same thing. And we think more is going to happen. That's why we're having this event, to look at the opportunities that are there for tech talent. How can we use tech talent to further build our economy? Young people are doing great stuff. How can we further encourage them? What are some of the things we need to put in place and do to ensure that we maximize the potential of our young people who are in tech? So with this, I think we can go straight into the next point on the agenda, but I'll call back the compare of this event, Mimsha Kobiawa.
Thanks, Lolade. Please put your hands together for him. So something interesting happened. All of this started when two young ladies, Lithuanians, decided to venture to a country that they had never been before. It was crazy. I remember just like it was yesterday. Two ladies came to the office at Ventures Platform. Back then, I was working at VP. And I was told, Mimshak, there are these two ladies here. Can you take a meeting? I said, okay. And I walk into the room, and there are these very young and Mike. Thanks. All right. So there are these two young ladies seated in the meeting room. And I'm like, okay, so where are you from? I said, Lithuania. I'm like, is that a city? He said, no, it's a country. Like, wow. Where is that? And then they pulled up a map and said, is this tiny country somewhere in Europe, and we have just 3 million people in total, and we want to come and build a partnership with Nigeria. And I felt that was really bold. Fast forward. That one meeting led to a major project, and today we're launching a company moving to Nigeria, or opening an office in Nigeria. So for the next keynote, we're going to be having Mante. Mante is the co-founder of Africo. She's one of the bold ladies that ventured into our office and now doing great partnership together. She's a Lithuanian, so Africo is a Lithuanian-based organization, busy connecting and reflecting Baltic and Africa. From the birth of the idea, Mante has been involved in a Digital Explorers program that aims to facilitate knowledge exchange between Nigeria and Lithuania techies. Mante will delineate the story of the Digital Explorers story. She will talk about Digital Explorers, how we started, the why, the what, and how, and we'll share key lessons generated throughout the journey. So there's been a lot of ups and downs, and she'll be talking about how all of that came together. So right now we'll have Mante. She's joining virtually from Lithuania. So get your eyes glued to the screens.
Mante, hello, hello. Mante,
yes, can
hello,
you hear me?
hello. Mante,
Yes, can
hello,
you hear me?
hello. Mante,
Yes, can
hello,
you hear me?
hello. Mante,
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you go on?
Great. And also, is there any chance for me to share the screen? Because I see that I'm not able to share the screen. I need to be allowed by the host. Sorry for technicalities.
You can do that now.
We visited different tech hubs, tech organizations, startups, companies in Abuja, Lagos, and even Ibadan. And we really tried to have frank conversations. We didn't have anything fancy to offer, any funding, critical minds to discuss, so what is the reality of tech ecosystem and what are the challenges. And talent development was mentioned as one of them. We would hear, that while there is a lot of young people interested in tech related work, being ICT professionals, developers, and etc., when local startups reach a certain level of maturity, they often would look for talent abroad or would outsource some of their more complex projects. And we thought that it didn't make any sense, and that there is somewhat a gap in between, let's say, people that know how to make websites, but do not have opportunity to work on more complicated projects like banking systems, for example. And of course, I'm generalizing and not saying that there are no opportunities, but for the size of Nigeria, perhaps there should be more. So with all these things in mind, we were looking for the right partner. This is how we met Ventures Platform. And it took some time for us to start believing in each other and to learn to work hand in hand. But today, when we talk about lessons learned, I would say that this partnership was instrumental for the success of the project. So having a local partner that you can frankly discuss. So what is it that we need to do so we would not end up being just another donor-funded project, but we would actually do something meaningful, was an absolutely critical part. In a nutshell, what is Digital Explorers about and what we do? So we basically try to create a match between Nigerian ICT specialists that are eager to accelerate their careers internationally, with Lithuanian ICT companies that are interested in creating diverse multicultural teams, and both, for example, interested in exploring new markets, Nigeria including, or other African countries. Because Lithuanian ICT sector is growing really fast, but it's also very export oriented. And as Mimsha mentioned, we are very small, 3 million people, and it's not going to happen that every Lithuanian will become a developer. So we will need that talent from somewhere for our super fastly growing ICT sector. So, and what the project does, we have kind of three major stages. Creating a match, which basically means that we are doing recruitment in Nigeria, trying to find the right talent that would fit the needs of Lithuanian ICT companies, and at the same time trying to onboard Lithuanian ICT companies that would be interested in hiring Nigerians, which is not a very straightforward thing, but I will talk about it a bit later. And once we have a match, we facilitate the whole relocation and migration procedures, which is not straightforward as well. And I'm sure Nigerians will relate to that when I mention migration procedures and how complicated it is for Nigerians to actually get those opportunities abroad. But once people are in Lithuania, we also don't leave them to be on their own or just to be in companies. We do a lot of what we call soft landing and cultural brokerage. So we help both sides to understand each other because we somewhat already have an understanding of both sides, or we have partners that are also understanding both sides. So we try to manage feedback loops because there are some misunderstandings, helping explorers to figure out their lives in Lithuania, etc. And then in the end of the program, what we do is what we have a stage called, or not called, how we informally call it, making it easier to say or not say goodbye. So some of the people stay and we slightly facilitate their stay when it comes to legal procedures, etc. Or those who go back are supported by a Ventures Platform back in Nigeria with assistance in finding the right job opportunities for them, with an experience that they got in Lithuania, so they would be meaningfully employed back in Nigeria. Just to give a bit more technical details, we have two different tracks that we piloted throughout the project. So one was specifically employment, and 15 people were employed by 7 Lithuanian companies in the first track. So Telesoftas was one of them, hiring explorers. And now we have a different track, which is a traineeship. So it's not employment, and this time we take entry-level female data scientists that are going through intensive training and are also hosted by Lithuanian companies for their traineeship. So they are still in Lithuania, and some of them will be coming back to Nigeria. So for companies that are there in Nigeria, I would like to invite you and encourage you to reach out if you are interested in hiring these smart ladies back in Nigeria. And besides that, as part of the program, or the program facilitated Lithuania joining VFS visa centers, because previously Nigerians would not be able to apply for visas for work permits to come to Lithuania, because they would need to go to an embassy, and Lithuania does not have an embassy in Nigeria, so they would have to travel to South Africa, Egypt, or other countries not based in Africa, actually. And of course, Telesoftas launch in Nigeria is what we are proud of, because we always thought that explorers, that's how we call Nigerian ICT specialists that are part of the program, should pave the way for more opportunities for techies on both sides, Lithuania, Nigeria, and perhaps other countries in the future. So these are just few faces for you to see. The Nigerians of the first track, together with representatives of the companies that were hiring them. And these are the ladies from our second track. So beautiful and very smart data scientists that I once again would like to encourage Nigerian companies to be interested in hiring and reaching out. But as you saw, we had basically 26 people that came to Lithuania as part of the program. And I know that this number sounds ridiculously small in the Nigerian context, a drop in the ocean. But it's not because we didn't want to have more people. It's because it was super hard even to get the 26 matches. And I know that Telesoftas will be very positive about everything. So I would like to add some salt into the event and perhaps inspire discussions afterwards with some critical lessons learned, let's say, or what we learned throughout the program. I think it's very important to ask ourselves, so how can we move from 26 to 26,000, at least for a beginning, because Nigeria has a lot of young people that could become that really needed tech talent in Lithuania and in the world. So these are a few quotes that we got from companies when we were trying to engage them and onboard them for the program, to get them interested to either hire explorers in Lithuania, or perhaps consider hiring them locally and remotely. There is a lot of skepticism often coming from HRs and also tech leads, and they perceive hiring internationals as a big transformation. So they really need to believe that there will be value added for them. So Telesoftas is a very good example, because they were very intentional about their participation in the program, and they were already thinking long-term, but not all the companies are, and they need this extra incentive and extra encouragement to do that. When we talk about opening offices locally, there is also a lot of skepticism about what it means to open an office locally, and if you are able to create a conducive work environment. A lot of infrastructural challenges are often mentioned. Then, of course, there are perceptions and stereotypes about Nigeria. I will not quote a lot of things that we heard at a number of meetings, when people were skeptical about hiring Nigerians, but this image thing is also there. And in the beginning, Ololade mentioned about Mark Zuckerberg visiting Nigeria. I would say that this international recognition was also very, very important, even for the success of our program, because for every skeptical person, we could always say that, well, you know, Mark Zuckerberg believed in the talent in Nigeria, and we would be able to use that story to encourage people and believe that there is actually tech talent that you can work with. These are a couple of quotes that came in our external evaluators report about what it means to work together in the project for Nigerians and for Lithuanian ICT companies. And once again, just having in mind that we had a lot of positive feedback as well, but when it comes to why it's hard and what's critical and what we need to address, these are kind of examples of what people would bring. So, for example, about work culture, there are definitely work culture differences that need to be understood on both sides. So one of the explorers was telling that my previous bias of what a manager is has influenced of how to deal with a manager. I've always seen a manager as telling them what is going well. I internalized that telling about challenges is going to put you at a disadvantage. Only recently, I started to communicate more openly. And actually, this open and communication and trust is very critical in Lithuanian work environment and perhaps in any other European country. When we talk about companies, what kind of challenges they had, they would say that explorers were either junior, but even if they were not junior, they would see that there is certain gap in training. And for them, it also required to invest more to onboard people. So this matching process is not necessarily straightforward. To kind of summarize, if we think about having more of these connections, I would say that we have sort of three things that we need to work on. So one thing is technical skills, technical talent development. We realize that everybody in Nigeria wants to be a senior, but there's often lack of what we call a foundational knowledge. So the companies would say, or even through the hiring process, we would realize that people know how to use certain technical tools, but they don't necessarily understand the full, let's say, software development cycle in depth. And then it's hard for them to adjust to work with different technologies. So this is, I would say, something that needs to be done on Nigerian and as a homework if we want Nigerian talent to be the new oil. Then, of course, is the infrastructure. Reliable infrastructure is a critical part when companies are looking for opening local offices and or hiring remotely. To be honest, Lithuania has been for a long time trying to attract foreign direct investments from tech companies, from international, multinational tech companies to open their research and development offices in Lithuania, and reliable infrastructure has always been the thing that Lithuania would promote itself with. So perhaps there is some exchange, some room for knowledge exchange here as well. And for the European side or Lithuanian side, I would say that migration is a very key part that we need to work with because we cannot have more business connections if we are not able to create a conducive migration management procedures, because it's still very hard even to bring a Nigerian partner to Lithuania or any other European country. So I would say, I mean, we talk about potential, that there is a lot of potential, but we have known that for a while, and now we need to start talking about more about how do we deliver on that potential. So if we talk about success of Digital Explorers and why it has been successful, I would say that because we started with creating joy, but we also try to do it professionally and deliver. So once again, I'm really glad that Telesoft has helped us to deliver even more. And I hope that everything will go well and that Telesoftas will be taken care of in Nigeria, just as we tried to take care of explorers in Lithuania. Thank you.
Please put your hands together for her again. I am very sure that Telesoftas will be taken care of in Nigeria. So funny story. When we started designing Digital Explorers program, now I happen to be very privileged to have been sort of part of the whole process from scratch till now. And when we called it Digital Explorers, the thinking for us was, and it was quite a lofty idea then, that the explorers were not just the tech talents coming in to these companies. We felt that everybody on the program, including the companies, including the staff, including the team, were all part of exploration and all trying to explore the digital divide and trying to build bridges between two continents, trying to build bridges between several countries. And we always had great dreams of this program wouldn't just be for Nigeria and Lithuania, maybe we'll spread across the Baltic region, maybe we'll do all of Europe, maybe we'll do West Africa, maybe we'll do all of Africa. But all of these were still really lofty ideas. We also thought that there was a possibility that we could get companies from Lithuania to open in Nigeria, we could get them to build businesses in Nigeria, but again, these were all very lofty ideas. But as we got into the mix and we started implementing, I remember one particular day that I really like to make reference to, and it's really one of like the most pivotal times in my own career as a person. I went to Lithuania, and I was visiting with all the explorers that had, the first set of explorers that had just gotten into jobs. And I got there, and I remembered having dinner with them, taking long walks, and just asking them how they feel. And they were all excited. Wow, the work culture here is different, the weather, the speed of the internet. I remember someone telling me that I downloaded a 20 gig game. I have not played it. I downloaded it just because I can. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, right? But then when we went back and we were having like a team review and I was talking about like, what have we done? And we were so scared because we were supposed to take 50 people to Lithuania. We only had taken about 10 at that time, and we felt that the progress was maybe becoming a failure, and we were really terrified. And I told everybody, like, let's take a moment and just relax. Sometimes, those of us who implement programs, when we're reviewing our programs, it's all about statistics, right? It's about numbers. How many people were trained? How many people did you deploy? But sometimes we forget that those numbers are people and real lives. And I remember that day at that meeting in Lithuania, I told them that I've had a unique experience on this trip talking to these people that we brought to Lithuania. Many of them, their lives will never be the same. These people their mindset will be changed forever. These people will have international work experiences on their CV, which puts them ahead of many of their peers. And for a moment there, you won't believe what happened in that room. 10 grown adults, both men and women, started shedding tears. Why? Because it really dawned on us what we had done. In the next part of this program, we're going to be watching a video of the journey of 2 explorers at Telesoftas in Lithuania. And after that, we'll have one of the explorers talk about lessons learned and things that he personally has experienced on his journey so far. It's very important for us to just know that this event is not a finger-pointing event. So we're not about to start saying, hey, it's the government. The government of Nigeria hasn't done, the government of Nigeria needs to do, or who needs to do what. No, it's a conversation. But more importantly, it's a conversation that lets us understand that everybody has a role to play in making this digital talent, this tech talent, become Nigeria's next oil. So let's tone down pointing fingers and start thinking about what can I personally do to make this better. So with this, I'd like to if you could put your hands together as we play the video of 2 tech talents in Lithuania on Telesofta's soil.
Engineer. I would say software engineer, but I've kind of decided to focus a lot on front-end side of things. And yeah, I work for Telesoftas as a JavaScript engineer, and I basically get to work with anything JavaScript. React, Svelte, Node.js, a bit of it, and that's pretty much what I do here. I live in. My name is Godsman. I'm a front-end engineer. I would say software engineer, but I've kind of decided to focus a lot on front-end side of things. And yeah, I work for Telesofters as a JavaScript engineer, and I basically get to work with anything JavaScript. React, Svelte, Node.js, a bit of it, and that's pretty much what I do here. I live in Kaunas, yeah. Beautiful city, small city, but I think it's away from the whole noise in bigger cities.
My name is Kennedy, Ibe Kennedy. I don't know why I keep doing that. I'm a Java developer here in Telesofters. Live here in Kaunas too. Work in Telesofters for 2 years. Recently, I've been programming. I first picked up programming about 10, 11 years ago as a hobby, something to keep me busy while during the breaks while I was in school, my first year in school, but never really took it seriously. I never really thought it was going to be a career path for me until my final year, 2015, 2016, and then I actually spent some time developing my skills my own way, you know, and here we are. So the first time we really actually met each other was in Lagos, I believe. Yeah, it was in Lagos. We were both already processing for our visas to Lithuania. That was the first time we really met. But I saw him on the program in Abuja, and we never really talked until we moved to Lithuania. I think the first time we really had a conversation was probably
on the flight.
On the flight.
He sat next to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Of course, I remember Kennedy from Abuja. He was always, Kennedy has to ask a question. I definitely remember some guy who would ask a question we never knew any other person prior to the Digital Explorers, the events that happened in Abuja in May 2019. And we're not even on the same hackathon team, but then he tends to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So you would kind of notice him.
For me, my journey to Telesofters kind of started after I finished my youth service. I thought I was going to travel. That's what I wanted to do. I was going to take a break from life, travel around Nigeria because that's what I could afford at the time. You know, maybe give myself some new experiences. But then a friend of a friend of a friend told me about this program, this Digital Explorer program. Told me, just sign up, you know, it should be fun. That was the initial kick, it should be fun. The first time I was in Abuja and I saw Nervius, he's the current CTO in Telesofters, because he was in Abuja. His class, because he had some classes, there were some lectures, his class was really interesting and I thought, I would like to work with this person. So it's amazing that after the program, Telesofters took notes and offered me a chance to join them.
I would say my journey to Telesofters started out of, I would say, love or care. Yeah, and funny enough, I got myself in this company that cares a lot about people.
Sweet.
And stuff. Yeah, it was my friend. We were very close friends. He got a job in Berlin, and I sent him the link. I saw a job that he totally would fit in, and then I said, hey, I sent him the link. Boom, he applied, he got the job. And then he's in Berlin, thinking about me, and then sees this and writes me and says, hey, check this out, and sends me the link. And then I read about the program, learn about Lithuania, and then I saw a list of companies, and in my application, I specifically stated, because there was a part that said, what company would you really like to work for? I specifically wrote Telesofters there. I don't know, I went to their website, looked at what they do, and I was just intrigued with that. And yeah, I specifically liked the company before the event in Abuja, where I got to meet Nerios, I got to meet Gediminas, I got to meet Algidas. And then we get to Abuja, I meet Algidas. He was like a mentor for my hackathon group, and we're like, who is this guy? We did not even know he was the CEO of Telesoftwares until he gives us his card, and we're like, oh my God, he's the CEO of this company. And then I talked with Gediminas, and it was really nice, and that was where everything, kind of kicked off. And I, did a couple of tasks and interviews, and I found myself here. So my onboarding, I would like to say it was kind of a soft landing, because it was coming into this new company, new region, different way of doing things, very different way of doing things. And it's kind of helped or prepare me for most of the projects I work with now. So I would say absolutely it was very necessary. It's helped me understand the team style, what is expected, what you should do, what you should not do, but in a less pressured project or environment. There's no pressure, it's onboarding. It's take out the next month, next 2 months, and get to just write code. We'll tell you what's good, we'll tell you what's not good, we'll teach you our style, and then you'll be fine. And just like that, that's exactly how it happened. It was good, it was not a project, because it was a bit shocking to me at first how much attention was paid to code quality. I mean, I come from a very fast-paced environment where things need to be done yesterday. Like the business comes and says, we need this feature yesterday. So you have to finish it very fast. And less it works, that's the deal, let it just work. But here, it works wasn't just enough. The fact that something works was not enough, but how long can it work? Can somebody understand what you wrote? Is it clean enough? Is it scalable? Is it neat? Like so many other things I had to consider or put into consideration while writing code. And I think what I really like in Telesoftwares is, I don't know how they created the environment or what spices they used, but it just has this chill environment in the midst of a project that is going live next month. It's a lot. We ran through the roadmap last week with the product owners, and it's a lot, but everyone is working so hard and it's chill. The pressure is not like, hey, there's not much pressure, but the thing is, people still deliver. So it's really nice to have this kind of thing going on and you're still comfortable.
And to promoting a chill environment, taking away the pressure of the stress or the fear, it's a big boost for a developer. It's a big boost for me. I'll speak for myself here. Taking away that stress, the pressure to deliver is a big boost. And I find out that you do your best work when you're relaxed while you work. When you know you can take a 30-minute break. Poof, it's the little things, right? But they kind of amount to a lot. Would I call it a challenge for me? I think it was early this year, 2021, was the first time I had a burnout and acknowledged I had a burnout. Previously, when it happens, and you sleep it off and come back working, But this year, I realized I needed to take a step back. And it was helpful talking about it with my STL, who helped me put a finger to, this was the problem. You're not just tired, there was more to it. And that was different, realizing that he cared about you as a person beyond your work. Wow, it was a little overwhelming, to tell the truth. It was a little overwhelming. And I didn't realize there was more to it than just this is a new thing. But my SEL, talking to my SEL, helping me, so you will have to cut out a few of those.
Here we are.
A few months down the road, it's September now, and taking the break I needed was...
Employee happiness is key. If you can keep everyone happy and comfortable, that's very important. And also growth is really important, because at every point in time, my soft team lead is asking, hey, you like your project? Do you feel comfortable there? If you don't like it, we could talk. And at the moment, I feel like, yes, I'm in a team where I can grow. I'm in a team with 5 other front-end engineers, and it's a lot of knowledge sharing that goes on in that space. The social life in Telesoftstars is absolutely magnificent. Yeah, I'm just going to say it like that, because I'm going to merge social life and activities, and I think I might be able to make you remember some things when I list out all the activities.
Sure.
That you could count as social events also. So I like activities, outdoor activities, and I wasn't even really the party guy. But then I come here and there is Christmas party, there is summer party. This year I literally had to fly from Norway back to Lithuania for 1 weekend to attend the summer party, and then the next week back to Spain. I mean, that's how chill we are here. So it was really nice. I would not want to miss it. So yeah, a lot of these activities kind of make walking fun. Then we had the ping pong tournament. I thought I could play ping pong. I thought I could play ping pong. I was like a champion back in my home country. And then I get here and I see Dangiras, I see Gilles Vinas, I see a lot of guys, and I get knocked out in the first round. We get knocked out in the first round.
At least you got points.
Yeah, I got 1 point.
Good for you.
I won just 1 match and that was it. But I'm looking forward to the next ping pong tournament.
Oh, big time. Big time.
Yeah. For me, there is vocation, which my team is
I'm so jealous.
My team is very religious about this vocation. It has to happen every year.
Yeah.
So last year we went to Ignalina. This year I do not know where we went, but we went somewhere out of town.
And you took dogs.
Yeah, yeah, we had a dog on the vocation. And it's nice that you come to work on Fridays, you see pets, see dogs around. It's really chill.
The first time we went skiing,
yeah,
was
Druskininke. Yeah.
So to be fair now, looking back, I realized I owe a lot of my social life to Telesofters, because it kind of introduced me to things that I actually picked my interest, and things that kind of keep me busy now. You wouldn't know it, but Telesofters is really an international company in the sense that they kind of account for or take into account everyone while doing and planning things, vacations, even team company memos. You know, it's the small things. Yeah, but I was kind of expecting integrating to be harder in my head, but it was a lot more easier because the people, my colleagues, HR, they kind of were ready to have me. And so yeah, that's the favorite thing for me, working here, yeah. If someone could acknowledge that they could hear me.
Hi, Kennedy. I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if the people in the room can hear you.
Kennedy, you're
Yeah.
good to go.
Okay, just going to jump straight into it. Hi, my name is Kennedy. You already met me from the previous video, so I'm going to share my experience here in Telesoftwares Lithuania, along with my insights, my thoughts, and suggestions on what Nigerian individuals, companies, and governments could do to make our market more competitive. Have in mind that everything I'm going to say is based on my personal experience. I don't want to generalize all companies in Nigeria. And if I do sound like that, have in mind I'm talking about companies that I have worked with and I have experience with. From the beginning, the journey itself. The journey, I found out about Data Explorers program when a friend of a friend who had seen my work in a prior hackathon gave me a call and told me to check out the program. You know, it's like that back home. You know, tech-related information tends to spread only amongst those in the know, only amongst people in tech companies, computer department in schools, and their friends. And I hope we can change this because I hope we can make tech information available to a wider array of people, especially students, you know, because there's a software enthusiast in many departments outside computer. I'm an electronic engineer myself, but I picked up software dev as a student. The DE recruitment process was very, very transparent. You know, the organizers, Mante and Genia, they kept in touch. They answered questions promptly, which was a practice I wasn't very used to in Nigeria. You know, I've submitted a few applications that have not been acknowledged to date. You know, and that lack of transparency kind of breeds a unique form of nepotism, like a referral without merit situation. The transparency of the DE process also prevailed in the job requirements posted in the ads. It didn't require me to have 5 years of experience for an entry-level position. The recruitment, the hackathon, which my team won, not bragging, the job offer and the eventual move to Kaunas was thrilling, and it was made easier by the fairness and honesty displayed by all parties involved, the DE team and the Telesofters team that gave me a pretty sweet offer. And when I got to Kaunas, I wasn't expected to hit the ground running. I wasn't even put on a full project for like 3 months. Instead, there were discussions about what I expected from the company and what the company expected from me. My technical team lead gave me tasks to better understand how I work. And so I better understood how the Telesofters process was. You know, it was used to mark out my strengths and my weaknesses. And we used what we learned from this onboarding process, because that was what we called it, to set up a plan for me to, you know, grow my career, to build my career, both personally, both emotionally and professionally, and to better work with my new team while also visualizing a future for myself, all by giving me time to integrate into the new work culture, you know, learning on the job. And work culture, one of the first things I noticed outside the weather here is quite cold. At least when we got here, it was quite cold. Was the dress code of my colleague? You know, it was presentable but liberating. I wasn't expected to put on a suit and tie and put on dress shoes. I remembered when I worked in Nigeria, I used to call it the office uniform. I wasn't even customer facing. I was in IT, but I was expected to wear white shirt or checkered shirts with the black plain trousers and no jeans. You know, if I'm lucky, if my company had traditional casual wears on Fridays, but here every day is be yourself day, you know. And then there was also the flexible work hours and work location. And this was even before COVID made it a thing, before COVID proved that more companies can implement flexible work hours and flexible work locations. Because as long as there are KPIs to track the developer's performance, you know, and sprints are properly planned, occurrence of things like working overtime and impromptu weekend work, which I had a few of those in Nigeria, those could be avoided. And this leads to better work-life balance. Because I remember the first time my TTL told me that a task could wait till morning, I was surprised. Like, he wasn't rushing me to finish, which is how we work in Nigeria. I want to get everything done as fast as possible. And also their work benefits. For me, Telesoft has kind of fine-tuned benefits to each individual, because for me it's gym and food, you know, they kind of counteract, but I mean, I love food. For my colleagues, it's usually fancy workstation gear. These perks are fine-tuned to each individual. I know this practice is not common outside telesofters, but I know a lot of companies in Nigeria can implement this type of practice because it increases general employee happiness. And then shock therapy. This is what I called what we called it, our group called it, because practices here that took some getting used to. I'll start with human resources. Here, I learned that HR, their role went beyond hiring, firing, and reprimanding employees. You know, when I was in Nigeria, if I got a mail from HR, I was probably in trouble for something. But here, HR checks up on me from time to time. They have an offshoot, the soft team leads, who they ensure I'm enjoying what I'm working on. They help me discuss my career plan, the progress, and see if I should make adjustments. They are willing to discuss personal and possibly emotional blockers to my work. You know, this simple act of acknowledgement, it's give me a heightened sense of self and trust and amps up my productivity. It also improves the communication lines between not just me and HR, but between me and other members of my team, the department, and management. Because back home, felt a sense of unquestionable reverence to people that were older and higher position than I was, you know. The CEOs, VPs, HODs of companies, they don't feel approachable to the regular employees. But here, Algidas, if you've met him, you realize he's a very bubbly person. He reaches out to everyone. He's willing to have a chat because here, the respect flows both ways, regardless of the age or position you are. And it's promoted by a continuous checking in, controlled though, but continuous checking from all parties involved, everybody, not just me, not just the HR thing, but everybody. Another big shock was the pay. Here, when you say competitive pay, you mean it's going to favor the employees, not the employers, because we kind of misuse competitive pay back home. But I understand because truth be told, the pay disparity back home has deeper roots. The minimum wage in our country is, this graph shows the minimum wage in Nigeria and Lithuania. You notice how the Lithuanian line keeps growing. That's because the government reviews this pay every year. They account for inflation and the current state of the economy, not just in the country, but in the world. Sadly, in Nigeria, that decision is mostly politically driven, and it only comes from after countrywide protests by labor groups or youth groups. The Nigerian government can and should do more for its citizens. It's sad. Also, there's a problem of not being enough opportunities because we have a lot of people. Nigeria is a very populous country. We have a growing number of applicants who are vying for very few opportunities. And this leads a lot of companies to paying just above the bare minimum because you will hear things like, if you don't collect this pay, there will be someone willing to collect that. It's kind of sad. I know a lot of Nigerian companies, especially in the IT industry, are doing more to improve the situation, but I believe we can do a lot more. I also believe some practices like contract staff hiring, that's where you hire a staff temporarily and they don't get full benefits. And then hiring of graduates as interns, it should be completely banned by the government. This leads me to labor laws. Researching for this, I learned that Nigeria had two existing laws that I didn't know about. One, pay docking, it's illegal according to the Labor Act of 2004. And also, if you live somewhere 16 kilometers away from your work, your company should provide you transportation allowance or a mode of transportation. Sadly, like me, a lot of Nigerians don't know of the existence of these laws because, for example, pay docking is a widely common practice in Nigeria. Worse, because I've seen it in tech spaces, because it happened to a friend of mine. But the bigger problem is the Labor Act of 2004 is archaic and it's outdated and it's overdue for a review. I read about a review proposed last year. It's passed the second reading in the Senate. but the review was aimed to increase the fines of defaulting companies instead of improving the law to protect employees. Here in Lithuania, there is social security. There are laws that enforce overtime and severance pay. I remember in January, I took about a month of work because I had a burnout, and I didn't have to worry about losing my job because I had this profound sense of job security. That was because I knew there were laws, edicts in place that protected me. The more important part was I knew of the existence of this law. A colleague of mine told me that in university, it's mandatory to take a course studying the country's labor law. I believe our education system in Nigeria could do something like that. Education of people of the existence of laws that protects them. It's kind of important, and it would go a long way in improving the general work climate in Nigeria. So that's about it, because I've learned a lot from the people, from my office, from my work. If I said office and work, from where I stay. So in conclusion, I believe for us to adapt this change, I believe change can be made in Nigeria. Like for Nigeria change can be made to make entry and thriving in the IT work climate in Nigeria much more easier and much more conducive. Individuals and private companies can start making these changes because some of them don't cost a penny. Some of them don't. It's just changing mindset and culture. Dispersing information fairly across the labor pool, acknowledging that talents as humans first and treating them as such. For the government, I hope we as a people, because the government is of and by the people, right? I hope we can implement change through policies that empower the people to grow, to build themselves, and to build the firm, the firms they're involved in, and then the country as a whole. And that's about it. Thank you very much, guys.
How they are made. So it says sugar, spice, and everything nice. And then the professor mistakenly puts chemical X. So hopefully, when Algridas gives his speech, he'll get to let us know what chemical X is. And then I also remembered my first trip when he was talking about shock therapy, my very first trip to Lithuania. I went in January, and if anybody knows what Lithuania like in January, it's winter. It's a terrible winter. And I was flying from Frankfurt, and I slept off in the plane. I always sleep when traveling. And I opened my eyes about 2 hours later, and I looked outside, and all I saw was white. Like literally, like it wasn't clouds, no. I was looking at the floor, and it was all white. And all that came to my head was, Mimshak, you're beyond the wall. For those of you that watch Game of Thrones, I'm like, this is definitely beyond the wall. Great, so for the next part of this program, we're going to be having a panel conversation. It's going to get a little bit more interesting and hopefully more interactive with getting audience participation. We want to really now take a deep dive into the topic for the event. Is can tech talent really be Nigeria's next oil? And what does everybody need to do sort of in that mix to make this happen? I remember one of the panelists that's going to be speaking to us today, one of my big uncles, my egbon, my ogas at the top. And we've had a very heated debate about how Nigeria needs to find a way to monetize its population. I know it's quite a controversial topic, and I'm hoping that he can get into some of those nitty-gritties today. So at this point, I'd like to make welcome Nkechi, who's the CEO of Venture Spark, to moderate our first panel. Nkechi, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming as well. I'm very excited about this panel. So I'm just going to take a minute to call my wonderful panelists. I would like to call Bruce Ayonote, the CEO of Suburban. Hi, Bruce. Take a seat. You get the first pick. Okay. Joel Ogunshola, co-founder Tech for Dev. and the former SSA to the Ondo State Governor. Thank you very much, Joel. And I think Ife stepped out. If someone can catch Ife for me. Yes, so while he's trying to catch Ife. I would like to welcome Emeka Igbeka, VP Vertex Software Core. And we have Karen. Thank you. Kenechukwu Chukwu. Is she in? Welcome, welcome. I don't have her. She'll introduce herself specially. She's actually a late addition to our panel, so she will introduce herself specially. And Ife Adebayo, who is actually around, but I think he just stepped out. He's here and working at the same time. So once he comes in, he will join us. That will be Ife Adebayo, the essay to the Vice President of Nigeria on innovation. So once he comes in, he will join the panel. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ife. Yes, Ife Adebayo. Welcome. Thank you very much. I have such a wonderful panel, and I'm particularly excited about our last edition because if she were not here, it would have been an all-male panel, actually. So I'm really happy to have her here. We're going to be talking about, could talent be Nigeria's next oil? Who thinks it could be the next oil? Well, a few people. That's good. So we're just going to have an interesting conversation around that, if we think it's the next oil and what are the opportunities that exist in tech talent. So if you have questions, okay, thank you. If you have questions, you can note it. At the end of the session, I will take a few questions. I'm going to give our panelists just a minute to introduce themselves, anything special they want you to know about them, so that you can understand the caliber of people that we have before us. So Bruce, since you have the mic, you can go first and then pass it down.
Hello, everyone. Is it by age or what? They just handed the microphone to me, I'm wondering.
Yeah, it's not, I don't know, maybe because you were the first person.
Okay, all right. My name is Bruce Ayanote. I'm the CEO of Suburban Fiber Company. Suburban is a platform, software, and infrastructure as a service company. We do end-to-end ICT services. We've been doing this for over 2 decades. We believe very strongly in Nigeria. We believe in its people, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you very much. So pass it to Joel.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon or good evening once again. My name is Joel Ogunshola, and I'm currently head of partnerships and sustainability for Tech for Dev. We're a non-profit that is focused on connecting young Africans to economic opportunities through digital skills and jobs.
Thank you very much. So, Emeka.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emeka Igbeka. I'm currently the Vice President for Vertex Software Corporation based in Austin. Vertex is a software development company, and we build custom applications for businesses. We also invest in Nigerian talent as well, and we have a couple of Nigerians, aside from myself, working for Vertex, based in Austin as well. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenechukwu Chukwu. I'm Member Services Manager of AfriLabs. AfriLabs is a Pan-African network of hubs across the continent. We currently have a membership of 292 hubs in 49 African countries and providing the platform for collaboration amongst hubs across the continent. Our mission is actually building a thriving ecosystem built by the community, so it's great to be on this panel.
Lovely to have you.
Good evening. My name is Ife Adebayo, Special Assistant on Innovation to Nigeria's Vice President. So I advise the government on support for the tech ecosystem, for the creativity ecosystem. And I can see a lot of hits for the government already. And I have 2 of my guys here that will have probably been better positioned to be on this panel to take the hit.
Thank you. He already knows that it's coming, so he just had to let's see how it goes. Be writing your questions, especially, he's ready. I told him to prepare, so he's ready. So we're going to take a few questions that I have here, and then if you have questions in the audience, just write it down, and then we'll pass it down so that they could also answer a few of it. So my first question is for Ife. So Ife, How did Nigeria become to be so, dependent on oil?
So that's a tricky question, and I think it was mainly due to the fact that it was an easy revenue earner, and so you had it's a dual problem where you had a military problem, a military government that wanted a unitary system that it could control, versus the easy revenue that could be gotten from oil, which enables you to have that unitary control where everybody feeds from one pipe, right? As opposed to a model where you have states, local governments, independent, being able to generate their own revenue, being able to focus on their human resources, talents, which is what we're talking here about, and use that to develop along technology, agriculture, infrastructure, health, education, and basically build up in a way that economic power is decentralized. So from 1999, when we transitioned into a democratic government, it was an opportunity to basically look deeper into that and start to decentralize power and give people opportunities. But what you also find is that the people who controlled the structure at the time also fed off the military, right? And when you look at the intellectuals of the time, you know, the Patutomis, the Wole Soyinkas, the Gani Fawehimis, they stayed out of the system, right? We're too intelligent for this group of people. You know, we're too clean for this corrupt group of people. So you have this corrupt group of people who just continue to feed from this revenue. And the people who were supposed to step into the space and take over from the military, the people that had the brains, the Bekor and some Kutis, you know, and the likes, they stayed out of the game. And so there was really nobody doing the hard work. And by the time they realized, Wole Soyinka started his own party. Gani Fawehinmi started his own party, but it was too late. The people who controlled the structures already, you know, already had their teeth sunken deep into it. But I think there's still an opportunity for us, and I think conversations like the one we're having today are pretty important. I think we're on the path already, and I'm sure that we will prevail.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I personally debate that had Nigeria never discovered oil, maybe it would have been more creative in finding other revenue sources. Okay, so my next question is for Bruce. Bruce, what is Nigeria's future when it comes to oil, especially considering the Dangote refinery project? Because it seems we still have our eyes set on oil.
Okay, I think I'll start with the Dangote project and do the future. I think Dangote's project is a jailbreak for Nigeria in the midterm. And why I think that is, I think the oil problem is about efficiency. And a lot of problems in the country, in Nigeria, is about efficiency. So unfortunately, Nigeria was not able to efficiently tap into that resource and optimize it. And that limited the resources or the financial benefit we could get from it, because beyond products and crude, there are byproducts. And there are other products that are not oil as you know it, but can generate a lot of revenue even post the oil era. Ethanol, plastics, you know, all of that stuff. And we never touched here, was just go for crude, go for, you know, the easy way out. But I think the biggest issue about the oil is the pressure it puts on us, and then the productivity, the stifled productivity, and you have the bulk of our revenue subsidizing inefficiency. So therein comes Dangote. I think he's proven to be a very, very efficient businessman, and running that large enterprise, he's able to, Nigeria can piggyback or partner, and we can save ourselves the costs that, how many trillion of subsidy, I think can be reduced, and we can be a net foreign exchange exporter in the short term if that relationship is harnessed. So I see the Dangote factor as positive in the short to mid term, but in the long term, oil is a dwindling resource. The numbers are glaring everywhere, globally. But the thing I think about Nigeria is Nigeria doesn't understand itself. Because when there's a problem globally, there's an opportunity, there could be an opportunity for Nigeria, depending on you understanding the dynamics and where you sit. So globally, you're seeing the numbers, the investment is reducing, there's a lot of divestment in oil, and obviously demand is reducing based on COVID, etc. So the numbers are really, really bad for oil, but it gives a good opportunity for Nigeria, I think, because they will still be used for oil. So if we improve, cut costs, improve efficiency, Nigerian oil is very good quality, very light, and can be used. So I think we still can have a future for oil, but not as what it used to be.
Thank you very much. So he says short to mid-term, so we need to be thinking long-term as well. Joel, yes. What are the opportunities that exist in the talent economy, and how can Nigeria position itself to leverage it?
I think that very glaringly is the fact that we have a growing youth population. I mean, we can debate the statistics, but there's about 50 to 60% young people between the ages of 15 and 30, thereabout. And so what it means is we have a strong workforce, I mean, ultimately. What we need to be able to do is to then, match this teeming young population to both skills and jobs. Ultimately, there's a consensus that the academic system today does not prepare people for the future of work, universities as they were, and that's debatable. However, what is possible is for us to be able to quickly upskill this set of people, and there's a lot of effort ongoing, by the government. There's a number of opportunity, but just like the lady who had spoken about the Digital Explorer program has said, it's then start to speak to the quality, because right now I think there's a lot of quantity when it comes to upskilling. There's a lot, so both on the blue collar, white collar economy, tech, there's a lot going on. But then how many of these programs are really strong enough to produce the kind of talent that the market needs? Globally, COVID has created a huge opportunity for us. A lot of companies are starting to now think about remote first rather than remote friendly or physical first. And so what it means is more Nigerians, that migration challenge, it's not as strong as it used to be. So it means you could be here and work for a company in US, in Lithuania without having to migrate, because we really don't know when the pandemic is going to end. However, there are still challenges around the quality of the talent, work culture, ultimately in terms of how we're wired as a people, in terms of due diligence and attention to detail. Those are like key soft skill challenges that we have, and for us to really be able to maximize the opportunities that we have, we will then need to really look critically at some of those, and there's some organizations already doing that. So I mean, to give credit to some organizations. However, there are huge opportunities. Also, when you look at the larger outsourcing market, which is what I think that Nigeria can really benefit from. So very similar to what you have going on in India, in Bulgaria, a lot of other economies. So they've been able to build a strong either business process or technology outsourcing business, and the revenues are mind-blowing when you look at what it's bringing. So when we start to compare this to oil, so there's some statistics around the fact that India made about $200+ billion last year from technology outsourcing alone. And so that's a market we can also tap into here because of the population. And I think also drilling down, I know that with COVID, a lot of foreign companies are starting to look at Africa and specifically also Nigeria, from some research and some conversations we've been having recently, especially because with COVID, a lot of the bigger countries did not give consideration to how the immediate shutdown of the economy was going to impact on some of their outsourcing practices. So companies like Facebook, a lot of companies really suffered heavy losses because outsourcing is very heavy dependent on a physical infrastructure. You come into an office, you deliver a service. So there was that huge shock. So there's an opportunity for Nigeria and Africa to benefit when we match our talent pool that we have, or growing talent pool, let me put it that way, because there's still a lot of upskilling to be done. But definitely, when you look at the fact that by 2050, Africa would form half of the world's working population, I think, very simply, we're on our way to making, human capital, our next oil. However, we need to address issues around the quality, which is a fundamental systemic problem where even simple things are not built to last. So we need to address those fundamental problems, obviously with support from a lot of external parties.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing. We do have some systemic problems that we need to address. Just an example, even in this event, I think I was speaking with Stranus, when it was time for the event, I was like, where's everyone? I told him there's normal time and there's Nigerian time. You would get to understand it. But that's part of the systemic problem. It just shows our attitude towards basic structures that exist. Okay, Emeka, do you think that tech could be Nigeria's new oil? Do you think that it could be the chief source of revenue if given the attention that it demands?
Yeah, so I think the question is, we're already getting there because we're seeing a lot of activity within the tech environment that's going on at the moment. There's been a paradigm shift from where we were 5 years ago to where we are now with a lot of tech companies. And you're seeing talent being harnessed at different levels, and you have organizations that are having to tap into this talent as well. I mean, we just watched the video about telesofters, but we do know that in Nigeria we have similar agencies like Decagon and the Andelas as well that are training developers and exporting this talent. And interestingly, Decagon, which is the parent company for Vertex, has trained software engineers and have exported the same talents in America as well. So we're seeing that growth within the tech industry. And then there's another part of the tech industry we're seeing as well, which is the fintech as well. And in the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of growth. Even though relatively new compared to the global fintech industries in the world, Nigeria has been in the news recently because of acquisitions and also investments and also fundraising within these different fintech agencies. So if you put all that together and then with the kind of speed at which we're accelerating at, I do believe that we will definitely be at the top, and before we know it, oil will be a distant future. However, it's important to also note that the environment is also very key. And there's a lot that behoves on government to create that environment to be able to thrive, for these businesses to thrive as well, and look at other indices that would make it much easier for them to thrive in as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Kenechukwu. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Are there nations that have harnessed the power of the growing talent economy? I know Joel had mentioned India, but if we were to, I always believe in looking at templates that exist and examples of successes in how to build a nation. So are there nations that could serve as an example for Nigeria in designing its future with a view of tech talent?
Yes, definitely. I will talk from the African perspective because I work with AfriLabs. Yes, definitely there are nations that have been able to harness it, and you see how this has actually contributed to the growth of their economy. I know just like what he was saying about how tech, it can be the new oil for Nigeria. I know, for example, I know Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, those guys have really been able to look inwards towards their tech ecosystem. So you see that they have policies that are also favorable. And over time, even based on research, you'll see how far it has contributed to the growth, to the GDP of the economy.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you have questions, if someone could pick the questions so I could come to the questions. So if you have questions, who do they pass it on to, Lolade? Okay, please pass it on to Lolade. He's that handsome gentleman holding the laptop, and then we'll be able to get to your questions. So, if, yeah, give it to government. I know plenty of questions are coming for you, I hope. So what has the Nigerian government done to support tech talent? I mean, we hear a lot of talk, let's be honest. So what has the Nigerian government done? Or it doesn't, because I feel effort goes in the direction where they feel the future is. So what has the Nigerian government done?
Being real now, I think for the first time since 1999, we have a government that showed specific interest in the tech ecosystem. Starting, of course, directly from the presidency with the vice president himself taking charge. So I think largely, when you look at the ecosystem as a whole, government has been really invested. And when you want to quantify what government has done, you'll have to look at the direct interventions and the indirect interventions. When was it Lolade Omimsha was speaking earlier, he had mentioned the opening of offices by Microsoft, opening of a space by Facebook, by Google. All these are all these are indirect results of the vice president's personal engagement with all these guys. There was an announcement of the vice president in partnership with Microsoft in January this year, focused on Microsoft promising to train 1 million developers in the country over the next 5 years. There's a Google engineering office in Lagos, which was as a result of the VP's visit to Silicon Valley, where he met directly with the Google CEO. There are engagements also ongoing with other organizations on investing directly in Nigerian talent. But also, there are other conversations going on directly with the ecosystem, like the Nigeria Startup Bill, which is being driven by my Oga, Oswald, which looks at the whole ecosystem and skills and how we can support skills within the ecosystem is one of the key things that we're looking at. Another project I'm working on together with Oswald is the Nigeria Innovation Program in partnership with the African Development Bank. This is a $500 million fund led by the African Development Bank, and it should kick off next year. And this fund is focused on 4 key pillars. Infrastructure, how can we support infrastructure within the ecosystem? Skills development, how can we support skills in the ecosystem? Funding and finance, how can we support venture capital companies, angel investors within the ecosystem? And of course, some of this funding will also even go into supporting organizations that are in talent development. And then advocacy, how do we start to have a voice? How do we support the secretariat? How do we support the ecosystem in speaking up and engaging government directly? So government engagement is both direct and indirect. And I think in the last few years, government has shown that this ecosystem is an important one. This ecosystem is one in which we take what we're doing seriously. We've had global CEOs, we've had Mark Zuckerberg visit, we've had Sundar Pichai of Google visit, and each of these guys visit and engage the government also as part of the engagement with the ecosystem. Rounding up, I think also the ecosystem must meet the government halfway. I believe that government cannot create jobs. What government must do is create the right policies and enable an environment. But then the ecosystem has to be willing to step up and engage. So the startup bill, for example, is one that has been ecosystem driven. We have guys in the ecosystem who are actually drafting the bill and are engaging directly with government on how we ensure that the bill goes forward. The $500 million innovation fund of the African Development Bank is also largely ecosystem driven. The AFDB team has met consistently with ecosystem players to get their input and get their advice as we go forward. So I think it's going to be 2 ways. We will work with private sector should also work with us so that we can grow Nigeria's talent for the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, Ife came prepared because he knew that it was coming, so thank you very much, Ife. Bruce, my question for you, what would you recommend that Nigeria as a nation do to prepare to leverage tech talent as a new oil? You've heard all that the government is currently doing. What are you going to recommend should actually be done? In addition to all of this, what would you recommend that would make a difference?
I think we should go get a trainer, get trainers and go to the gym. We should build muscle actually, because it looks like, you know, there's major activity going on. And I think what Ife said, which is, you know, might be not appreciated properly, is government is driving. Because when it's wholly industry driven, it lacks the legitimacy for the type of growth. And especially when it's that strong, it becomes even more of a threat, because government always looks with suspicion. But when government takes control and creates the environment and enables, then growth can be really accelerated. So what they're doing with the startup bill and the interventions going on are very, very valuable. And when government starts doing that, then industry players now need to build the muscle to take the avalanche of opportunities coming forth. Because what mostly happens is we're not normally capitalized, be it financially or mentally, even spiritually, capitalized enough to take advantage of these things. So I guess for the industry, prepare, you know, is about to get Really serious.
That's good. That's good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Joel, what kind of ecosystem support do you think will be needed to grow the Nigerian tech sector? You're looking at the startup ecosystem. What's the support that is needed?
I mean, at first glance, it would seem like Ife has ruled out all the amazing programs. Ife is a good friend and a boy of mine. But I would say that, I mean, two things. So one would be the fact that, and I think that with the work that, Oswald is doing, I've been on a couple of the Nigerian startup bill calls from a government engagement in Southwest standpoint. Eventually, I remember I called the day while they were having the engagement, there's the round table, and then there was the NIDA bill that, some regulation that came out, and then it was like, fine, literally. And so it's almost, could cause like a policy somersault, where on one hand, there is a side of government that is looking to actively pull things up, very intentionally, because I've engaged with a couple of people and the intentions are genuine, let's put it there. But then you then have a part where a number of people within government still do not understand how it works and what the mid to long-term benefits to us as a country would be. And so there needs to be that intra-government engagement. So not just government to ecosystem. Government within itself needs to engage. And then when we then take it one step, lower, is the fact that, so I was opportunity to work in the state government, and you realize the somewhat huge disconnect between the federal government and the state government. And, and sometimes it's around party lines, political lines, and, sometimes around interest. So for example, we're seeing the old VAT debacle from a federal, even though it's one government, so same thing in tech, where there's going to be a need to have some form of active steering committee where everybody comes to the table to say, both state and federal government, even local government, because now there's autonomy at the local government level, and that's the lowest level of government, where everybody needs to be aligned to the plan. We might have different political views, but I think that we can centrally align on moving our people forward and driving development and increased economic growth. And so the federal government needs to intentionally engage the state governments. So some state governments have done well, like Edo State, Kaduna State. They've done really well in driving human capital development conversations. However, some states are not opportuned to either have the quality of talent and minds to drive that process, as much as the other. So you need to have that, I would say, convergence of all the different players in government, both local, state, federal, and other forms of regulator that are involved and playing within the space. Because what you have right now is people are somewhat scared to say, so people will tell you, when you have a new idea, don't announce it. Don't even go and get the license. Have the idea, start running. When you are big enough, when government comes for you, let them catch you, then you people start to go back. I saw, an information today about and Bamboo saying, their accounts have been unfrozen. Yes. While they are, and maybe because being in government, I've seen why there are real legitimate issues around, breach in clear black and white regulation as well. But there needs to be that, and I think that on the final side between government and ecosystem is there needs to be some form of, I would say, dialogue forum where things don't really need to go far before the ecosystem, like Ife said, and he has also said, needs to come halfway and be more willing to engage government, because it's really a trust issue. Yeah. It's really, I don't trust these guys. And the truth is we are the same people in and out of government and ecosystem. So I'm playing on private sector, I'm in government. It's the same people, literally. So there needs to be that, increase. Because, for example, I'd met someone and said, how are you doing? I'm like, fine. It's like, then I said, what about your role? I said, I've left government, I'm no more in government. It's like, fine. I really want to tell you this now. So it meant he wouldn't have told me, at the point where he believed that, I was still in government. So there needs to be some forum. I know the vice president created some advisory committee at some point, but it needs to go beyond having an advisory committee to having an active, community engagement, across board. Basically, I think that's how we're really going to unlock the full potential. So it's not a government alone effort. Government can't do it all because, as we know also, we're not too rich as a country, ultimately. So it's a really, the donors also need to come to the table, because what you would also see is the fact that a lot of the development partners are also working in silos. So there's a lot of silo activity happening. And so you see repeated investments going into the same thing, so GIZ is investing in this, the UK government is investing in this, the US government is investing with this, in fact, funny, with the same partner on the same thing. So you have, that issue happening. So I think across board, that convergence needs to happen within government, internally, and also within government and all of the other ecosystem players that need to help to make things happen.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I agree with you. That's why we even started an ecosystem dialogue series. I don't know if you're even aware. And the whole point was to bring the different stakeholders together to discuss. So one, for the government to properly understand what the talents need, what the startups need, and for the startups to understand government processes as well. So it's really, really important. I think, the government cannot work without an understanding of the people that their actions are affecting. So thank you very much. Emeka, do you think that Nigeria is awakening to the opportunities in the tech talent sector?
Very much so. With the activities that are going on currently, with the likes of the various institutes and dollars and the likes training Nigerian talent, you have a situation where more people are starting to get into IT and also starting to train for opportunities within both in Nigeria and outside the country. You're also seeing things that are happening within the social media space as well, where people are tapping into the likes of Instagram and the rest, and are started already generating revenue from it. But by and large, within the talent sector, the training and the placement of people that are being trained in various organizations is growing exponentially, and it gives an opportunity for people to be able to tap into it. So we're looking at we moving from the traditional 9 to 5 and then having to put people and place people in different organizations. And we empowers both the youths as well to be able to do stuff for themselves, as opposed to having to go get a degree and then start to apply for a job. So there's a huge awakening when it comes to that, because we're starting to realize the potential and the revenue we're getting from this. And when we have telesofters coming to get Nigerian talent, we also have people within the US as well. Interestingly, while I was in Austin, I sat down with a professor who's looking to bring in Nigerians into the United States and then also place them in jobs. So you have the likes of Facebook, Amazon, Google waking up and picking up Nigerian talents as they come out. So there is that awakening for both the businesses in Nigeria and also the youth as well, to be able to train themselves and equip themselves so that they can get better opportunities abroad as well.
Thank you very much. And those are really serious evidence that are pointing to that fact. So thank you very much. Kenechukwu, do you think that the tech future for Nigeria is bright? And what evidence have you seen to support that?
Of course, I would say the tech future for Nigeria is bright. If you should take it a while back, 5 years ago, it's not the same. There is a buzz around the tech ecosystem as at 5 years ago. When I entered the tech ecosystem, 5 years ago, I can remember when I talk of, I work at AfriLabs, we are a Pan-African network of hubs. And they're like, what are tech hubs? What are tech startups? Literally, that was a question I got as a 2016. But now, fast forward to now, you see that there's a lot of awareness around the tech ecosystem with Paystack. With the news about Paystack last year, it created a buzz, and then you see people like, want to go into the tech ecosystem. So people see it as a new way to make quick money, I would say, per se, because you see a lot of startups now, they come in, want to get one seed investment immediately and just would make a lot of money, but there's still lots. With the wave around the tech ecosystem, still there should, and this is where the position of hubs are, because with the awakening and everybody's like, there's money in the tech ecosystem, there's still that whole thing of making sure that the quality of startups, the quality of talents we produce from here do not diminish. So there will be an influx, but also it's the job of the hubs, the community and ecosystem to make sure that even though attention is drawn now to the Nigerian ecosystem and then tech is really gaining all the attention, but to make sure that over time the quality doesn't diminish. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So there are really lots of signs in that direction. I remember after the Paystack acquisition, my father now called me and said, so Nkechi, what is this tech that you have been talking about? What is it about? So people are now, you're just assuming the questions are for you. So people are now getting more interested, and I'm happy because even this year alone, just looking at the half-year report on the number of investment that has flown into different startups, we're already exceeding last year, and that's really, really amazing. To Ife is what it says. How can tech companies in Nigeria be protected from the legislators or policymakers that could cripple or discourage startup companies or existing companies in Nigeria?
So you protect yourself from everybody with legislation, working with the legislators. So and I think the tech ecosystem especially, needs to move away from the mentality of them versus us, right? The doctors, they consistently engage with government. And they get what they want consistently. You find lecturers, you find farmers, you find women. Yeah, I mean, they do go on strike because their own funding comes from government, right? But the tech ecosystem, I mean, look at Bruce. Bruce is a billionaire, irrespective of the government. It doesn't need anybody, So you're independent, right? So you're a pay stack, and you do not want to engage with the CBN. You have to engage. It's a global phenomenon. I mean, I'm sure Telesoftware engages with the government in Lithuania. You have to engage with government. So it cannot be them versus us, right? And protection requires legislation, which is why Oswald has been driving very strongly the Nigeria Startup Bill, which basically looks at all the issues that have been going on within the ecosystem and looks to protect startups and protect the ecosystem. And as part of that engagement, we have Mohamed Jagger here that's been leading engagement, and he's from the ecosystem, he's not from government, but has been leading engagement with the National Assembly. We've met with the head of the ICT committee in National Assembly. We've met with representatives from the Senate to ensure that not only do we educate them and let them understand what we're bringing to them before it comes, but that we also get their buy-in, and then they then go on and get the buy-in of their colleagues. So with the relevant legislation and with the relevant laws in place, then startups will be protected. But it has to be done together. It cannot be a battle. It has to be a collaboration between government and the private sector. And just before I leave, before I hand over, I also want to talk about the Digital Explorers program. I think that is an example of how to use foreign aid, where you can use foreign aid and see the result directly. Other than we've spent $1 billion in Nigeria and we cannot see the result, we can't count the tangible result. So I'll say congratulations to the Telesoftware team on that.
How much time do I have left? Okay. So just one minute answers as quickly as possible. I'll throw this one to Joel, because Joel, you're working a lot on the talent side. How can we solve our tech quality issue as we increase in tech quantity, both on a government and a private sector front?
Well, I would start from where I first stopped and said it's not government versus us. It is we together. I'd say, and we're having a conversation outside just before we came in. One is to ensure that the curriculum and learning content development is industry-led. So you see from the Telesoftware videos, the engineer were talking about how it's a culture shift. If you want our people to become global, we need to get global leaders in talent. And I think Andela did a very good job at that. When Andela came into Nigeria back then, they brought in a lot of senior engineers from different multinationals to actually come and drive the training here. It's expensive, but that's what needs to be done. But thanks to the upcoming AFDB fund and a lot of activity going on, I'm sure that through a collaboration, we can make something that would happen. But ultimately, I think that quality is dependent on who delivers the training. And so you need people from industry who probably even, we need to go as far as people who built the framework. So we need to go to Facebook and get the guys who built React. We need to go to Microsoft and talk to the guys who are building the core, C# and .NET framework to actually come and deliver the learnings here, or create a series of content thanks to virtualization. And all of these organizations have a lot of volunteering program where their employees can actually go for 6 months, 3 months, and actually go and volunteer their time in different places. So to solve that quality problem, we need to get quality trainers and quality facilitation and learning content. And ultimately also, I think, and Decagon has done a good job at ensuring that there is that experiential learning. So it's one thing to learn in the classroom and learn something. It's one thing to go out into the industry. So I know with the program, because we have a couple of Decagon engineers on our team, they then require them to go through a 3-month internship, last time I checked. And they get, partner organizations that pay them to actually work there. And that's actually shown a lot of tremendous results. So training, quality training, combined with experiential learning, I think is going to be, and at scale, to be first, we need to be able to do it at scale. But most importantly, I think there's going to be need to have a lot of partners collaborate, to make it work. So every individual, non-profit or, social enterprise would not be able to attract that amount of top talent to deliver that training. So there needs to be some form of middle level or middleware where, that learning facilitation and content resides, and then everybody's able to access those courseware, ultimately. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's amazing. So Emeka, there's tech and there's tech talent. Maybe there's a potential for tech talent to be the new oil, but tech is definitely our new oil. But what does this mean for companies in the country that need tech talent? Isn't there a case for brain drain here?
Well, as much as you might want to see it that way, there's also the opportunity to harness that talent in country as well, and also put that and place them in different jobs as well. Just to say this, we're partnering with, as Decagon is partnering with Edo State to build a campus for 5,000 developers to train and house them. So that is an initiative that we intend into with Edo State. And if we have that with other states as well, we'll see a growth in tech talent, which is talent that is residing in that state. Because at the end of the day, the trained and talents, or the talents would reside in that state and, contribute tremendously to the growth within that state. So as much as you have migration of talent, you also have the opportunity to harness the talent inside there. Now, the only challenge with that is that everybody looks out for a greener pasture because of, better pay, but it also behoves on government as well. And as Ife has said, it's also an opportunity for both parties to come together and then work out some better pay and for the ecosystem itself to be able to harness the talent and then keep them in country. But if you ask me, there is an opportunity. We train people, we place them in different jobs, both in banks and other companies within Nigeria itself. So the opportunity still resides for us to be able to keep the talent internally, but we need to do more, and not only from the employer side, but also from the environment and from government side as well.
Okay, thank you. Just an addendum to that. So how is talent exportation positive for Nigeria?
So, well, first things first, it gives good image to Nigeria, that we have good talents coming out of Nigeria. Secondly, there is also the ripple effect in terms of FDI as well, coming from investments and also monies coming back into the country as well. But more importantly, the image does drive our DNA, because you heard the lady from Lithuania mention something about the image about Nigeria. First of all, having to deal with Nigeria, and there's that general belief that we can't be trusted in business. But when we have our people being exported, doing very well in the likes of Facebook and the rest, it creates a good image for Nigeria. So that is intangible reward that you get, first of all, and then you look at the FDI that comes along with it.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Because of time, we won't be able to take any more questions, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this panel session. Very informative, very amazing. And I know we're all taking notes on some few next steps. So I'm going to hand things over to Mimshak, but before I do that, thank you very much, each and every one of you. You've been wonderful. You've been wonderful.
Thanks so much again. Before you go, I just wanted to say something quickly. For my next comment, I want you to observe something with all my orgas at the top. Have you noticed their outfit? Have you noticed their outfit? All right, you can go back to your seat. So I want to say something. Thanks so much. I know I was telling our greeters and Sharonas yesterday that there is an Abuja big boy uniform. And that's literally it. But this, why I'm bringing this up is because of a conversation around stereotypes. it's very difficult to generalize, right, and always be right. For example, Igbo people like money, right? Or the Abuja big boys who always wear a kaftan. But the truth is this, many times, more often than not, stereotypes are right. But that doesn't mean that we should continue to promote stereotypes. And the reason why I'm saying this is because one of the companies, when we're on the Digital Explorers program, one of the companies that was supposed to hire explorers couldn't hire once they realized that they were Nigerians. And the reason was because they make security software for banks internationally. And it was going to be very bad PR for them to hear that they were hiring Nigerians in security for banks, trying to secure their systems from Nigerians. And it's so funny, again, that the Nigerian prince, who doesn't exist, seems to be the most popular Nigerian in the world. And finally, on my first trip to Germany, I got there, landed, it was still bright and sunny, took a walk with my friend. Now, I would never, unfortunately, this is like streamed online, so I promised myself that I would never share this story because it's such a big disgrace to me. But I'll take the blow. I'll take the bullet for one for the team. I went out on the street, and I saw these guys playing a game, and you could put some money and win some money. And I felt like, on a normal day, if this happened in Nigeria, I'm not going to drop my money, right? But I'm in Germany. Come on, these are white guys. They're not going to cheat me of my dollar. So what did I do? I was so sure. I put a $100 bill. Pa, 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 poof. The money is gone. I wasn't sure what was going on. So I stood back and like, what's happening here? And then my Kenyan friend just comes in and says, well, come on, this is good money. And he just goes and drops $200. And it's like, don't you want to bet? I'm like, I need to understand what's happening here. So I kept looking. And he lost his $200. Literally, that was all his pocket money for that 2 weeks that we're supposed to be in Germany. But what is it? It let me understand something. There are fraudsters in Germany too. But we don't think that Germany is a fraudulent country. Why? It boils down to something that Chimamanda Adichie says in her speech about the power of the single story. Is that for many times, many places, many people, all we hear about them is one story. And that story continues to reinforce until all you think about that people is that one story. But even though the Nigerian prince is fictional and it seems to be a very bad person, we have Shola Akinlade of Paystack, who built a company from scratch and exited at $200 million US. We have Flutterwave and the guys who are building incredible companies there. So the point is, there are so many stories of Nigeria, right? But it takes all of us to tell all the multiple stories. Another thing I've realized about Nigerians is this. We have an uncanny ability to tell all the bad stories of Nigeria, every opportunity we have. And that's why we have the next panel, very interesting panel. It's a panel on Nigeria's image versus Nigeria's talent. And I feel like the talent people are always at war with trying to prove themselves in this great big world where the world is now becoming flat. So to anchor that panel, I'd like us to make welcome Stacey Ewa, who is a senior project manager at Code for Africa.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be here. My name is Stacey. Okay, sorry. I'm actually very COVID. I pay attention to COVID rules, because people are still getting COVID. So it's very nice to be here, and Mimshak has done a very good job of giving an introduction into this topic. I had something prepared, but I don't think it's relevant at this point. So today we're going to be talking about the Nigerian talent and the Nigerian image, basically the intersection between how these two meet, right? We're trying to figure out what is it about us as Nigerians, especially Nigerians right now, that is limiting our growth in the international and global space. In a nutshell, that's what it is. So today I'm going to be inviting very important and awesome guests. I don't know a lot of them, but I'm interested in meeting them, and I'm sure you are too. The first person I'm calling on to the stage is Mr. Oswald Osaritin Gubadia. A round of applause for him, please. Thank you, sir. After that, I'm going to call on Mr. Andre Dada. Sorry, and our next guest will be Mr. Mohammed Jaga. We also have Dr. Toby Moody. Dr. Toby, a round of applause for him, please. And we have someone joining us virtually, Mr. Fola Olatuji David. So I don't know if you guys have him on, please. We'd like to see him on the screen. And while they are getting that done, I'll call on Mr. Usman Maruf. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as you know, we're having a conversation on the Nigerian talent versus the Nigerian image. We want to understand what is currently ongoing. We want to understand how to navigate the situation that we are in. I want to just discuss this vital topic that's going to help us sort of amplify the growth of the Nigerian tech talents in the global space. In order for us to do that, we've been able to sort of like put together a framework of how the conversation should go. And I'm going to start first by first understanding what the Nigerian image crisis is about. My first question will go to Mr. Oswald Saratin, and that's because, you know, before we even start that, please, sir, before you respond, can you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
My name is Oswald Osari Tingobadia, and I'm a farmer.
You're a farmer.
Yeah, I saw how you guys treated the land.
I'm going to say what he really is.
So, I am the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Digital Transformation.
Thank you so much. Before we proceed, let's also have Fola on screen. I think we can get him on now. Fola? Hi.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Brilliant.
Okay, I think there's an echo. So, Fola, it's very nice for you to join us. We're hoping you can hear us, and we're hoping we're not going to have any form of technical difficulties today. But while all of that is getting sorted, we're going to continue with introductions. Would you like to go next, Fola, so that we can have your introductions? Fola Olatuji David.
Good.
The next person that should give introduction is Mr. Andre Dada.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andre Dada, CEO for Advanced Software Solutions. I'm primarily based in the UK and came to the studios on the invite of my very good friend, Olalade, the director for Opera Company.
Thank you. So we have Mr. Mohammed Jaga.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed Jaga. I'm a serial tech entrepreneur. I've been in the space for almost 2 decades. Part of my success story is I co-founded VoPay, and in early 2016, I moved into blockchain industry to also co-found a blockchain company called Dominion Blockchain. So I'm more or less like an advocate of blockchain in Africa, because we're one of the pioneers in deploying blockchain as a service in different sectors in supply chain as cargo tracking, which currently we're doing in Sierra Leone, and also land registry, which we're doing in Abia State, and identification and also verification. And also I'm an ecosystem founder, which I founded Stand Up Iowa 5 years ago. The tech movement that has a community of over 10,000 tech enthusiast startups and entrepreneurs. So glad to be here.
Nice to meet you. Yes, Dr. Toby, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Toby Moody, and very honored to be here. I currently serve as the head of the World Intellectual Property Organization Nigeria office, and we opened the office last year. It's a specialized agency of the United Nations, but really focused on intellectual property awareness and growth in the country, and so really honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Toby. And finally, Mr. Usman. Go ahead.
You know, it's not easy sitting on the seat that the person who left the seat has to. But I have a colleague on the other side. So my name is Usman Maruf. I'm from NIDA. Yes, NIDA. Yes. So it's really good to be here. Well, I've been in, actually I've been in tech for quite a while. So this is coming full circle. In 2010, we started something with the World Bank. I wasn't in government then. And, you know, a decade later, we're back really to the main thing again. So I've worked on e-government for a couple of years in NIDA, trying to see how we can, together with the Office of the Vice President, improve the ease of doing business. Government is huge. Government is huge. I'm really happy to hear the things about, you know, we need to talk more. It's not a versus.
Yes, it's not a versus. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you starting with that. Again, a lot of you know me. I don't think there's more introduction for me, but yeah, I'm Stacy. I work with Code for Africa, and primarily what we do is that we build civil tech digital systems. I manage two teams. One does a lot of work around forensic investigation, digital forensic investigations, and another we do a lot of environmental monitoring, where we're building simple IoT device to monitor the environment. It's quite cool. So today, again, back to what we're talking about, we are talking about the image of Nigeria versus the talent of Nigeria. My first question again goes to you, Mr. Osarity. What are some of the events that have led to the current image crisis that Nigeria has?
Some of the events?
Or activities, or stories.
So I was promised that all the difficult questions would be sent to Ife. And I was just supposed to be here to show a smile.
Yes.
So I mean, if you go across the different narratives of what Nigeria is and isn't, you're not going to have me say those exact things out of my mouth, but there are a number of things that are said internationally about what Nigeria has done. Is the case of not highlighting the positives and focusing on the negatives. There was a meme going around just the other day where we were holding on to bad news and ignoring the good news. There are a lot of good things that are happening in Nigeria, both locally and globally. The video that was showed today was an example of something interesting happening, showing the ability of Nigerians to thrive and be excellent wherever they go. I think we should spend more time focusing on those narratives and not necessarily highlighting, even in discussion, the potential negative images. I don't see any. I potentially see some of these things as symptoms, and I would rather focus on the root causes of said symptoms and then move on quickly to focusing on the positive. And as some of the positive things we're talking about, you've heard people talk about the Nigerian Startup Bill a number of times, that we're working with, you know, Federal Ministry of Communication, Digital Economy, NIDA, JAGA here. A number of Nigerians have gone together. We have over 300 volunteers excited, working for free to progress something in Nigeria. So we should spend more time on that.
Okay, great. So moving on to solutions then. How are we currently managing some of the current Nigerian image? Because yes, I hear you, sir, and you talk about the fact that, you know, we want to focus on, you know, the positives. But we can't deny the fact that the negative narration is out there. Mimshak just talked about how, you know, there was a situation where they needed to employ Nigerian talents, but they couldn't do that because it had to do with security, it had to do with the banking sector. So these narrations are out there. We might try to look away, but, you know, it is what it is. So now, in focusing on the solutions, how are we going to currently manage that solution? I mean, if it was an organization, they would do a public PR, but this is a nation, so I think that that's something that we should talk about it. So how are we going to do that? And if we're going, and what are some of the ways or suggestions that you have? This question will go to Mr. Andre Dada.
For me, I would like to reference the late Professor Pius Adesomi. He told a story of when he was abroad, and there was an African lady who was cooking, and there was a complaint that her food smelt. He took up the challenge and basically said, well, what do your housemates actually cook? They mentioned some kind of specific cheese, and he asked, did it smell? And she said, yes. So he went down and he asked the university board as to the smell guide for foods. You know, why is one food smelling and why is the other one accepted? So I think for us, we need to do a better story of actually telling our own stories. Yes, you hear about Nigerians doing fraud. We're not going to deny that. But which country doesn't fraud happen? Maybe some people are quite loud on Instagram. We know of popular people. We're not going to mention names. But the same thing we do hear of, I mean, not to generalize, but if we're talking about drugs, we can point to some countries. Not everybody in that country actually supports drugs. We can mention other countries where the murder rate is literally through the roof, but not everyone actually supports killing people willy-nilly. I think for us, we need to kind of highlight the good stories about Nigeria. Yes, again, you know, we hear stories about, you know, this has happened, oh my God. I think it's actually working in partnership with people to kind of drive better stories. You know, if you go on social media, there's a ton of stories about what has gone wrong. What has gone right barely gets a mention. You know, you look at the comments in there, people don't tend to comment, just glance at it, okay, that's fine. Example, you hear about people in universities actually doing really good. They get prizes of maybe, I don't know, 250,000. But then you hear somebody who's created a scandal or something, you know, they come out, there's endorsements, there's everything. So it kind of seems like, you know, why am I actually putting all this effort into being good when, you know, you can just have this media blitz and, you know, get this kind of financial rewards. So for us as Nigerians, one thing, Nigerians are very, very smart. I would say that because I'm a Nigerian, and, you know, that's me telling the story of Nigerians being very smart. You know, you can pick up something and we can actually find flaws in it. You know, hey, some people take advantage of it, but other people from other nationalities also do the same. So I think the onus is on us to kind of work with interested persons or bodies to kind of drive the narrative of the good things that actually happens, especially when it comes to Nigerians. You know, we're not all criminals, we're not all fraudsters, and we despise people who actually do these things because they make it harder for us when we go abroad. You go there, you show your green passport, you get the look, like, oh my God, Nigerian again. Like you say, you know, I work for a company in the UK. It's quite a big company now. I was in the research and development team, and it was based up in Yorkshire, in York to be specific. And a Nigerian actually from a bank here actually applied for the role of a developer. And as soon as his email actually came, they didn't actually know I was a Nigerian because I also have a British citizenship. First thing they started the jokes like, oh my God, is this some Nigerian prince? Literally, that was what he was talking about. Until I actually mentioned that, you know, I'm actually from Nigeria as well. You know, not everyone, he's probably might be a better developer than you guys. You know, so don't just look at every Nigerian that applies like, oh my God, he wants to come defraud us. And I think, again, it's how we tell our stories. Now, where we're going to do it and how we're going to do it, that's another question.
Yes, that is actually the next question. And yeah, before we go on to you, Mr. Mohammed, I want to go back to you, Mr. Asarati. And I want to ask you, on solutions, what are some of the roles you think government can play in addressing our image issues? Or are playing currently, you know, because you're in government?
So a few minutes ago, you said, you know, if it was a company, you would do PR. Well, the same thing can happen for a country. But I think it's not really for the government per se, right? The government, there's clearly things government can do, but I also think it's every citizen, right? Because the citizens are the government, and the government are the citizens, right? So I take myself for an example. I say all the time, I wasn't born in government. right? I ran a company in Lagos. I got a call. I said, hey, why not? I'll volunteer, right? Now I'm in Abuja. Did I change? I didn't transform or transmute, right? I'm still a citizen of Nigeria. So the position you take on how you address your country is the best PR that can possibly happen, right? You don't even need, there was one we did a few years ago, Nigerians are great people. You don't even need that. It's really down to the individual. When you hear a piece of good news about Nigeria, share it as opposed to the negativity. Negativity happens in every country, like was just said just now, every country. The larger countries that do cybercrime is not Nigeria. Go look at the stats. It's Russia, even Canada. Who scams American the most? It's not Nigerians, it's Canadians. Why? Because they have the same accent, right? So it really comes down to the narratives you allow as an individual Nigerian, right? So the question is asked, what can government do? Well, government can continue to build on the trust, right? So if there's a trust broken down between the citizens and the government, that's where you have that sense of apathy where you just don't like your country. And you start hearing simple problems sound like it's really bigger and those problems don't exist anywhere else. He just clearly stated a number of them, murder rates and other things that happen. We tend to amplify ours better than places where it happens more. So I would say that, there's a lot for government to do, there's a lot for citizens to do, and there's a lot for them to do together, right? So government continue to do activities that help citizens to build trust and begin to trust their government. And government and the citizens also understanding that they're Nigerians first, regardless of, if you have other places you can go to if you have options. What I even found more interesting is people who don't have options, taking a very bad position on your only opportunity. You're better to fertilize the ground you're on when you don't have options.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Over to you, sir.
So it's really interesting, all the conversations I've been hearing today. So I'd like to mention in 2020, we started work on the national outsourcing strategy, and all these things are captured under strategic pillars of the national outsourcing strategy. Trust, privacy, security, branding and promotion, finance and incentives, human capital, multi-stakeholder governance, and collaborations. So we looked at it. The labor laws he was mentioned, we've mapped out labor laws, education. So when you're in a space like the company, our friends from Lithuania, it's a sector that cuts across. It touches many things. It goes into technology, education, labor, foreign affairs, visas and stuff. So, and you have to start worrying about legislations, laws in different countries, not just labor laws, but dispute resolution. So we are looking really ahead to try and see, okay, what are the things that are needed, we need to put in place? And we've started that work. And this year, what we intend to do is really map out who's playing in this space. What are the challenges? Mr. Ife has mentioned really that togetherness. That's what we are setting out to do this year. Go out, talk to people, map their challenges, and try to condense it, and try to see we remove the barriers, as one of the former panelists said, barriers between government horizontally and barriers down, barriers between state governments. Some of the things that I've mentioned that need to be done, we're already doing. Last month we were in Kano. The governor sat for a 2-day workshop on digital government to try and see really how does he change, find the new oil, change the narrative. The initiatives in Kaduna, the ones in Edo, the work, Fola, Jega and Co, we talk. So really, there's a lot that needs to be done, but it's doable. Some curricular supply side changes need to happen. You need to start churning out the right people. The culture thing, even though it might not look like to be top priority, is key. Because culture dictates what you do, who you believe you are, and your actions. That's really where we need to focus on that holistic approach. Yes, the country needs rebranding as a whole, and there needs to be deliberate actions, not just accidental efforts, but deliberate actions. Last week we were in a workshop, that's why I met Mimshak, that's why I'm here. We've talked about this last week. My DG was there for a week. We were trying to see really how do we close the gaps. So closing the gaps is key in country, to really address most of the problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that response. And I think we've gotten like the kind of response how, we've gotten a full response from you on what we need or what's happening in this space. I'm going to now talk about the value of the Nigerian talent in the global space. And here I want to call on Fola, because Fola has worked a lot with a lot of tech startups in Nigeria. And my first question to Fola is, what are some of the main reasons we need to be amplifying Nigerian talent globally? Okay, so we can't get Fola on here right now. So we're going to move on. On that same question to Mr. Mohammed Jega, because you have been an ecosystem builder, and you've talked about building the ecosystem in, as the founder of the Arewa community. Tell us some of the reasons why we need to be amplifying Nigerian talent globally.
All right. Technology is borderless because a lot of people have talent and skills that you can control and quantify what they can use with that. Technology has created and shaped a lot of things in the Nigerian demographic in terms of creating jobs for those who are skillful. Well, that's why most times when I see people say that there's no job, I tell them, no, you don't have the right skills to get being employable. That's why you're not being fit. So the gaps are wide, but we need to look inwards in terms of how do we help domesticate some of those ideas? How do we nurture those businesses, those skills that are there in Nigeria by identifying them and see how we can be able to promote them? Yes, the federal government is doing a lot in terms of creating enabling environments. NIDA is doing on its own part by taking some of them to GITEX, but there's a lot to be done more on that because there's a lot of, the ecosystem are together, but some opportunities come and it ends in Lagos. Half of it drop in Abuja, but what about those in Damaturu? What about those in Ogomosho and Abakaliki? They don't have such opportunities. But why is that happening? Because of the missing link. Nigeria is blessed with a lot of resourceful, disruptive minds, but how do we manage it? How do we see the need for us to collaborate and give the hand-holding in terms of pushing it? JIGAR cannot do it alone. Government cannot do it alone. NIDA cannot do it alone. That's why we need to have that handshake amongst ourselves. Collaboration where we create activities around showcasing the best of the best. In as much as people talk about, technology has its own negativity and positivity because of this. Everybody feels he has his own wall in his hands, so he can be able to send any message he feels. And that message, whether it's positive or negative, but they don't look at the repercussion of that message. Most importantly, those who are doing that are people who are not thinking about their country in terms of being more patriotic. You hardly seen developers, you hardly see tech founders, you hardly see skillful, resourceful startups going online to go and just say something negative because they are the real brand ambassadors. The ecosystem are the real brand ambassadors of this country. They are the ones changing the narrative. I happen to play on the global stage. I know what I face. And coming from a fintech background, Nigerians running a fintech company, you know what it is? We're one of the early stage fintechs. We started around 2008, when even Flutterwave didn't dream of coming to, or Pace didn't dream of coming to the fintech space. But then it was a real battle for us. We had to clear the paths. When it's the person that is going first will take all the pressure, the bonds. We did that to be able to create the paths for them to come in. And we're excited. When they came in, they came to us, we guide them, we told them the steps to take because we need to give them that brotherly advice. That's what is supposed to be done in every sector.
guide the ones that are upcoming, show them the way, tell them the pros. But you know, sometimes when this is happening, it has limitation because yes, in as much as we say, oh, it's hard in Nigeria, but Nigeria is an entrepreneur's heaven. Things are happening here. We are very resourceful, we are very skillful, and anytime we happen to get opportunity to play beyond borders, we've tried it before. We started locally and we play at the global stage. We see even the ones at the global stage, they don't have what it takes. If you put the likes of Revolut and the likes of Vokpay or Paystack, the kind of technology, the kind of the terminologies we put in place, the security on our system, it's a bit more condensed than that. Their system is so porous, it doesn't have that influx in terms of being robust. So why am I saying that? I'm just trying to justify that Nigerians have been breaking barriers and they've been doing a lot. They've been moving, but we need to come together in terms of identifying those who are noisemakers and those who are doing real things and those who need to be encouraged so that we can be able to nurture the next big thing.
Thank you.
Most success stories are going to come when we do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So from what I'm hearing from you, the expansion plan for us Nigerians is to first of all help build people in-house, right? And to look at to identify the major players, the people that are doing good work, and use them first as brand ambassadors, but also as our first point of contact for building people in-house before we even take them globally. Thank you. So I hear Fola is online right now. So I'm going to ask the next question. I'm going to ask him about scaling. So what are Fola, what are some stringent ways we can scale our STEM talent training on skills relevant to the global market? Because a lot of people have talked about how there are, when we started, we had the lady from the Digital Explorer, she talked about how sometimes Nigerian talent think that they are senior, but they don't have foundational knowledge. We also had the previous panel talk about how, mention things about like our educational system is not up par right now. And so we are finding that we are not having a lot of, we're having a lot of challenges on expanding the talents that we have locally. So I want you to focus on two major ways in which we can scale our STEM talents. First is in education, and secondly is in the migration pathways.
Hi, well, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
When I think about scaling talent, exploiting what we have, I think that's where you have programs like like Digital Explorers come into play, because what that does is it gives you practical experience in terms of what the market needs. I like to think of the way knowledge transfer will happen in terms of two pyramids. The first is a very common pyramid called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the base level of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs are your basic human needs. And that's how I think about technology skills that need to be acquired also. Everybody wants to learn how to, there's some feedback coming back. I don't know if I need to do anything. But essentially, everybody needs to learn some fundamental tech skills. I'm just going to mute myself. I hope that works. Everybody wants to learn. Everybody needs to learn how to build some fundamental skills. Can you still hear me? I'm so sorry. It feels like I can. Stacy, can you hear me? Great. All right. Sorry, my train of thought. So there's some skills that are fundamental that everybody needs to learn. In tech, you call it your first hello world, The challenge with those type of skills is they give you a basic understanding of tech, but they are not useful in the real world. It's just because the world has gone beyond that. It's like you're learning how to play music and they teach you how to play notes and half notes. So they teach you how to play do re mi, and you can play do re mi fa sol la ti do, and you can play it with your eyes closed 100 times. It's good. It's a good skill, but that's not a song. I mean, that's not how to write music. That's not how to score music. And so the first level that you want to do is you want to make sure everybody has that foundational knowledge, which is where, you know, you have programs like Facebook's training programs. You've got the Google Digital Skills. You've got the Microsoft, multiple programs that Microsoft and other big tech organizations and local partners do. I was listening earlier to the gentleman who spoke about, you know, the Edo State government training 5,000 developers. What tends to happen with a lot of this mass market, so to speak, type training programs is they give you a fundamental, knowledge. It's almost like a base level of knowledge that everybody needs to get. And so that's where I introduced my second pyramid into. Now, my second pyramid is the skill level, where at the base level, everybody has that skill, but at the top, you've got the very expert professional people who oftentimes work either remotely for foreign companies or they work abroad. So we saw the video with the two gentlemen. It becomes aspirational, and that's what I've seen. So there's the educational part, which is, you know, learning through classroom. And then there's the aspirational part where people see a pathway whereby it does involve, sadly, sometimes involves some form of migration. So whether it's migration within the country, like Jagan mentioned earlier, where you start some programs and people migrate to Lagos or they migrate to Abuja, or if it's migration outside. I am one of those proponents of, I strongly support migration of tech talent. I believe when talent migrates, it gets better and then people can come back and they can improve. So that's what I strongly think can help our scale. If we create a pathway for people to, you know, from the base of the pyramid, they've learned all those skills, they've learned the practical, they've learned the very basic skills, the foundational skills, but then there's now a practical pathway for them to work on it. Where do they learn this type of skills? From as little as short boot camps, you know, where you can go for a weekend, you can go for 6 weeks and, you know, learn how to code, learn how to do front end, learn how to do back end, learn how to design, learn how to test, learn how to be a QA, learn how to be a product manager. They're short boot camps and they're longer programs. I'm not even going to go into, you know, university education and saying like a 4-year or 5-year computer science or computer engineering degree. But I think there's multiple pathways. And if we think about it as being an aspirational journey, I think there's progress that can be made. Thank you.
So my last question will go to... Can you hear me? Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So I was saying that I want you to expatiate on some of the solutions we have to the challenges of Nigerian image. From all of the conversation that everyone has talked about right now, we know that the image issue that we have is something because of the monotonous nature of Nigerians to claim all the problems, right? And so we're trying to retell different stories about like how the Nigerian story should be different. We're trying to retell the narrative of the Nigerian story. But we're also hearing from what Mr. Jega said and also from some of the things that Fola has said that, you know, the issue of some of these challenges might also be because tech talents are just like they are in one place. It's not spread around the entire nation. We don't have it. It's consolidated or aggregated in several regions of Nigeria. So we're not able to reach out to other people. So we want to get to a stage where we're reaching out to other people so that we can also tap from their genius, we can also tap from their resources, and we can also be able to use that for both the betterment of the nation and also as exploitation of our talents globally. So my question to you is, how can we leverage our competitive advantage as a nation to improve our country's image? And by competitive advantage, I mean, you know, the fact that Nigeria is a multicultural region. We have, and also the fact that we have a huge population. There's so many competitive advantage we have as Nigerians. So how can we leverage that to sort of improve our country's image?
All right, thank you. It's a very tough question, I think, because it captures so much, but I think I'll just focus briefly, maybe just picking up from something that had been said about retelling our stories. I think it's important that when we think about the image of our country, I think on the one hand, it's how we look at ourselves, and it's also how others look at us. And so there's one thing about how Nigerians actually reflect on who they are, and on the other side is how others or the world, whether it's media or institutions, reflect on how Nigerians are. A very quick case in point, I was once invited to present in the UK, and I remember getting to the airport, and as usual, most Nigerians are very familiar with these kind of stories. But I'm used to being arrested at airports. I mean, that was just, it had become natural for me. So subconsciously, I was expecting that something would happen. So sometimes I even tell the people behind me, when it gets, maybe you just shift to the next line because there'll be a delay, But this one was kind of strange because getting through the airport, then the official looks at mine. Everybody's been stamped in very quickly, and they look at the passport, and just the fact that it's the passport, I was just detained right there at Heathrow in front of everyone. And she issued a detention order, but she was like, we can see something on your record that you've been denied so many times. And at the end of it, kept there for some maybe 30 minutes or so, but everyone had gone, and then they come back and say, you're free to go now. And I became very upset and told them I wasn't going in again. I don't feel safe in your country. I insist to speak to the person who is in charge here, because it's either of two things: I've just been profiled wrongly, or you have, there is someone impersonating me because I haven't been refused visas to your country. And I insisted on it, and the head of the airports came out, and we had a conversation about Nigeria's image. Right, so standing there, she said to me, look, the truth is, I cannot promise you that this will not happen again. You are a young Nigerian, but the truth is there is a perception that accompanies this passport coming through this. And I used the opportunity to say to her, listen, I'm not too focused on what these perceptions are, but I think it's very wrong for you to assume that every Nigerian fits into that mold. I think there are Nigerians, I'm being invited, I'm being paid, my flight is being paid for, to come in and educate your people on something. And I think for you to stand here and suggest to me that because of an image, and we had a very frank exchange, and it was interesting to see at the end of it that I feel there was something that probably shifted in her mindset. Now, I don't think that it means that everybody coming through, but I think in a little way, the image, it's how we begin to tell those stories of how we look at ourselves, that in little ways we can make that shift in the way others perceive who we are and what we're bringing. Now, I say that for two reasons, because when we now think about our talent, that I completely agree with the previous speaker who said it's nice for talent to go around, because mobility is something very important when we're thinking about tech talents. And when you have restrictions on moving around just because of the image, then it also hampers the way that we can export and really push our global competitiveness. And so that's something where I feel the government could do a lot more as well in terms of ensuring that Nigerians receive the respect, that they deserve, in terms of bilateral treaties and things like that. Before I stop talking, I think at the national level, I think there is a lot that we can be doing. Startups, one of the things we try to do at WIPO has been to look at, try to map out where are the startups across the country. And people send to us and say, look, there are innovation hubs here. And we realize that there, as Mr. Jega has rightly said, there are areas of concentration. And outside those, is it that there are no tech talents? I don't think so. I think it's just that some of them don't have access to those kind of opportunities. And so what we've been trying to do, for instance, is to roll out things like technology and innovation support centers to different parts, underrepresented parts of the country. Working closer with startup founders, I think it's a great way, it's a great move. And also, I think, encouraging people to really write and push out their stories. It's part of what changes that narrative as we continue to push out this story. So I guess those are some of the ideas I have, but it's really it's a personal responsibility as well as a collective responsibility that we have on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I don't know if we have any questions from the audience before we round up this conversation. Any questions? Okay, in the absence of no question, there's something I want to say. When we talk about Nigerian image, very often we talk about Nigerian image in the negative light. I know we all talked about it like, oh, yes, Nigerian image, let's not talk about it in negative light. But in my experience, Nigerian also have two different image. The image that we are quite aware of that sort of limits us, but we also have the image of doggedness. We also have the image of grit. My boss, my boss is a white German man. He would say to me, I like Nigerians so much because my best staffs are Nigerians. He tells me all the time. He's like, my best staff are Nigerians. Grit, doggedness. The fact that we go where people think it's almost impossible for anybody else to go. We don't think first about impossibilities. And you learn that as a child where I know my dad would say to me, when I'm like, oh, I can't do this, it's like, how did you even know you can't do it? Like, you haven't even done it. There is no. When other people are complaining about something, you just do as a Nigerian. You're taught to do. You start up doing. That's why we have so many startups. When you see people doing stuff, they will, in fact, there's, you're familiar with the popular adage where it's like, can't you see what your mates are doing? Well, there's nobody that haven't heard that. Your mother will look, you're still here sleeping. Can't you see what your mates are doing? That's why we do. That's why we complain about our country, but we don't complain about our inability to do. And that is also a Nigerian image that we're not talking about. I want us to also talk about that as a narrative when we go about, mentioning Nigerian image and Nigerian talents. The reason why, besides the fact that, foreigners are coming here and what the government is doing, is because they know that if they're able to find a Nigerian that is not a fraud, quote and unquote, that is definitely a Nigerian to keep for a very long time. So, in a nutshell, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, our panelists. Please don't leave the room. We just have one more keynote where our guys will be letting us know what the chemical X is, and then after that we have wine and cannabis outside. So just one more panel. So thank you so much. Yes, you can say something? Yeah. Thank you so much. You can go to your section. Yes.
Thank you, guys. Mimsha, have I heard the wine and cannabis? Yes. So I'll try to be as short as possible because I see that, oh, come on, it was for 3 hours. Guys, who wants to go and start doing networking? Oh, look, a lot of people. So, I think I just have like a short presentation that I just go through. There are some things that I need to tell. I'm just wondering where is my clicker, but it's somewhere around. So anyway, my name is Algirdas Stonys. I'm a chief executive and founder of Telesoftas. So I used to be a C++ engineer, programmer, objective languages. It's actually the programming for C++. My career started as a developer for the Symbian smartphones. So I was one of the first developers. Actually, we have developed a HTTP stack for Symbian devices. Before that, there were no WW, there was no internet, there was only WAP protocol on devices, and then we created that protocol, and that's how the career started. Okay, Mimsha, have my clicker, it's getting ready. Basically, it was 2003. I was 20 years old. Lithuania in 2003, it was not a member of European Union. We were not allowed. Actually, how I started that business, how I got the first deal, basically my brother invited me to Denmark, and he had some relationship with Danish people, and the Lithuanians had an image that, hey, Lithuanian guys, these are Russian guys, they coming and they doing some robberies, and they doing a lot of like begging around people and asking for money, and actually I didn't know, so I took a ferry, I took all my money into my credit card, and I went, and actually my English was really, really not perfect. I spoke like Russian, and on the border control, I give my passport, and the Swedish border control is looking at it. Oh, you're Lithuanian. How much money do you have on you? And I say, no money. And they couldn't say that everything in the credit card, so they thought that I'm coming to do some begging. So they arrested me, and immediately it was my first trip abroad, and I got straight to Swedish jail. So before starting Telesoftas, I went to a Swedish jail because I had no money, or at least I told them that I have no money, and I had a very, very bald haircut, because I used to play computer games, and I had blonde, spiky haircut for my e-gamer career, and then I started to do business. I had to shave my hair clean, so I look a little bit like mafia, and and then they put me to jail. Fortunately, my brother came in, and he bailed me out. He said, okay, he has money, actually. He will not be begging. And then I went to Copenhagen, and I went with a company that was doing Symbian smartphone development, and that's how Telesoftas started. So by now, it's already 2021. So Telesoftas is developing software for top companies around the world. So we are developing software that is currently being used by 1.1 billion people around the world. Of course, mostly we're working with telecom industries, so we are partners, long-term partners with an American corporation, Viavi, and this corporation actually have a lot of products for telcos, which we are developing in Telesoftas, but also this company is making technology to print US dollars, literally. And other companies are like a Blackstone Group, big fintech companies. I haven't told them that we're opening a Nigerian office yet. So, yeah, so under these conditions, you know that Telesoftas, we cannot afford to make poor quality. Basically, then if the word would go that Telesoftas has done poor quality product, then they will not order anything again. So I got into the, basically I got into the loop. I fell into the rabbit hole, saying those words. So indeed, how did we find out about Nigeria? We are a pretty small company. We are only 252 people, and for Nigeria, it's actually really small. And yeah, so, and we have not too much customers. We are working probably with 10 customers at one point. So how did the European Union came to us? As in Lithuania, there is, as you already met, Miss Mante. And actually, it was them who came to Telesoftas, and basically it was a program. It was a program to break stereotypes, basically to take women and let them go into the technology. And my test project was digital explorers. So that's how it started. So at the start, we started just as yet another outsourcing company. We started to look at CVs of Nigerian people, and then we boarded on the plane, and then we basically had this very unique recruitment process that's called a hackathon. So basically our engineers, they've been meeting and they've been having development sessions together with Nigerian engineers. And how awesome was that? Because while you're doing this, it was like a week long, and while you're doing that, you're getting to know people. You're actually revealing what they actually want. And then you can see the dreams, you can see the passion of people. I actually came into this hackathon as incognito person. I didn't say that I'm a CEO of Telesoftas. I just join in and say, "Hi guys, how are you doing?" So they really like that. Then I made the reveal that I'm actually a CEO. And yeah, and while we were doing that, it was a perfect opportunity for us to fall in love with Nigeria, with the country, with people that we have there. And of course, while we were doing that, we've seen a lot of challenging. So there is big problem with onboarding. There is like a way of learning that is here in Nigeria is so much different to the way of learning of IT engineers in Lithuania. But come on, it's doable. We can resolve that. We already trained 5 people. And communication, the transformation, actually how to translate things, how to translate, okay, you can translate something from Lithuania to English language, okay? You can translate languages, but how would you translate culture? How would you translate the approach? How you would translate the vision and attitude towards the customer that you should have in your mind? So this kind of visions and attitudes, they need to be translated, they need to be adopted, and this all takes time. But come on, we can do that. We have a proof of this success. And of course, this migration, bureaucracy. Actually, the program Digital Explorers, you know what? It was a huge failure. The program Digital Explorer has failed. You know how much it cost to Lithuanian government and the European Union? It cost 1.5 million. Of course, it's a tiny, puny amount comparing to World Bank investments into Nigeria. So it's just think about it like what can we do next? Take these people in Lithuanian people giving awards to Nigerian guys. They're receiving awards for their great job. And what we can do, basically we can just keep doing the success stories. We just need to say, hey, these Nigerians, they have done this great job and they won an award. And they received that great work. We can do that. We have created cool business here, and by creating those success stories, we're just gonna build like a sustainable business. Because once we have happy people who have jobs, who have very good pay, we're gonna have happy customers. We're gonna have the business that's gonna not only earn money for one time, it would be willing to invest that money that it has earned into the future and to train more engineers. And that is going to be a sustainable business model. And what can you do that is gonna be just simple figures. You're telling now about this new oil, but come on, just imagine, just set your mind free Like economy of artificial intelligence is going to be 15.7 trillion US dollars by 2030. Digital transformation, that's a very, very simple job, basically making your business into digital. This is going to be 2 trillion. So only them is already $17 trillion. Then we're not talking about smart government, I'm not talking about smart cities, I'm not talking about so much other industries. So that's going to be trillions of US dollars. Come on, oil industry, 7 trillion worldwide. It's not even close. It's so much better than the new oil. And it's sustainable because it brings value, it brings jobs, it brings education, it actually improves critical thinking of people. It basically kickstarts you to the next level. In Lithuania, when we left in Soviet Union, well, so we had no money, we were considered criminals, we had bald hair, and Swedish people used to put us to jail for no reason. I heard the story from Mr. Doctor here. So it's really possible, and Nigeria is basically the best place to do that because it is the largest IT community in Africa, and I'm talking about changing not only Nigeria. You can change Africa, but if you can change Africa, you can change the world. So guys, let's make an impact together, and let's go to that networking party.
Thank you so much, Algrid. That was great. So now you know why we're here, and you know that Telesoftas is opening in Nigeria. Before we wrap up, we're already wrapping up. Fola said something on the last panel. He said that when they teach you how to play do-re-mi, right, it's not music. But I think what they should have taught you is how to play do-re-mi because it's a hit. Well, that's an inside joke. I said, I'm not an MC, but I try. All right. All right. The last thing is we talked about the secret sauce, right, Chemical X. And Algrid has talked about the fact that happy people create happy customers and it's a sustainable business model. But there's one more secret sauce he didn't tell you. So if you have your bag here, open your bag. We decided to give everyone a secret sauce from Telesoftas. There is a can inside your bag. Who can guess what is inside that can? Wait. Chineye, please can we get a bag for Mr. Jega quickly? Who can guess what is inside this can? Fragrance? No. Socks? Who can guess? Spice and everything nice, right? Jollof rice? Cookies? Air? Anybody else wants to try? Money! Well, inside those cans is the Telesoftas socks. Who would have thought? So the secret sauce of Telesoftas really is thinking outside the box. Who would have put socks inside cans? Well, with this, we want to say a very big thank you to everyone. Some of my ogas at the top that were here from the beginning to the end. Thank you so much. Right outside, there is networking and canopies. Please meet someone new, collect business cards, build collaborations, and let's build the future together. Thanks so much for coming.